Welcome to Gluten Free Unwrapped, the podcast that takes you inside the stories of the founders, CEOs, and influencers who make the gluten-free industry tick. Whether you're living a gluten-free lifestyle, building a brand, or just love a behind-the-scenes look at how your favorite products came to be, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Jenny Finke, and this is Gluten Free Unwrapped. Today, I'm excited to welcome Marshall Rader, the co-founder of the GFB, to the podcast. Marshall and his brother Elliot both avoid gluten due to celiac disease, and we'll get into that story in a bit. But when they embarked on this life-changing diet in 2010, they quickly realized how few nutritious and tasty gluten-free options existed. That's when they decided to take matters into their own hands and create the GFB. This family-owned company makes a range of plant-based, gluten-free, and protein-rich bites and oatmeal cups in its certified gluten-free and zero-waste facility. The brothers are committed to using ingredients that are wholesome, understandable, and good for you. I'm excited to learn more about the origin story behind this brand that so many of us in the gluten-free community know and love. So, Marshall, thank you for being here today. Welcome to the Gluten Free Unwrapped podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So I want to get right into your story, how you got into the gluten-free business in the first place, how the idea for the GFB originated. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. So, it was, we'll wind the clock back about 15 years or so. I keep, whenever somebody says to me, how long has you been doing the GFB? I keep saying 10 years. And I realized just recently it's been 15 years because I want to ignore that I'm getting older.
Yeah.
So, 15 years ago, I was in my late 20s and my body was just kind of falling apart. I was active. I was doing all the things, and just my joints, my shoulder, I broke my foot. I had shoulder surgery. My knees were killing me. And eventually, I was going to a dietitian and a gastroenterologist, got diagnosed with celiac disease, and I went gluten free. And really, within a couple of days, I felt differently. And like a week later, it was life changing in a really positive way. Where, at least for me, it's tough giving up, just not being able to have pizza or have a beer or things like that. But for me, it was honestly not that difficult because I felt so much better. And so that's really, it was a positive life change for me, and it just, started to affect, everything that I was doing, and just felt so much better from the new lifestyle.
Wow. Okay. So you're feeling better and you've removed all gluten from your diet. And then when did you make that jump from, okay, I'm on a gluten-free diet to, I think I'm going to start a business?
Yeah. So I was traveling a ton for my job at that time, and I could be anywhere. It could be, just in my car driving for a couple of days. It could be in Asia, South America, wherever. And at that time, there were really only two brands of bars that were gluten-free. The idea of a gluten-free protein bar back then was pretty unique. Most bars were not that way. There was two brands. One was Larabar, which is a good product, but it's really just kind of, fruit and dates shoved together. And I would eat those and I'd be super hungry still. And then there's another bar brand that was, not as good, higher protein, but really not very good ingredients, and just didn't taste that good. But it was higher protein, would keep me full. And I was like, there's got to be like a better balance of these things, of something and for the initial inspiration was like, yeah, I need something that's going to keep me full. But I also like want to look forward to it. Like, whether it's your 10 a.m. like coffee or early afternoon snack, you're like, oh, I want to look forward to eating that later. And I just wasn't having that. I was like, oh, another one of these bars. Like, this is all there is. And that was really the inspiration of like simply something with good ingredients, good amount of protein that I actually wanted to eat. And that's how we started making the bars.
Yeah, I love that because I think of bars sometimes as emergency food, and that's how they were sort of relegated for a long time, that emergency
Yeah.
food in the bottom of my purse. But bars have come a long way in the last 10, 15 years. I think we have so many amazing options and made with better for you ingredients and that actually taste great. So I love hearing that. I'm going to get into the formula of your products in a little bit, but I wanted to take you back to when you're like, okay, yeah, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better bar. Did you know anything about starting a food business or recipe development? How did that all come
Oh,
about?
So that's kind of a funny story too. So I remember I was in like central Illinois. I stopped at Walmart. I was coming back from a business trip and I was like, oh, this will be easy. I'll just buy, some oats and some peanut butter and some almond butter and some vanilla extract. Like, how hard could this be? I went back to my apartment in Chicago, mixed some stuff together, and I had no clue. Like within a day or two, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. There's zero chance of success. So, back then, the thing that I did was I just put an ad on Craigslist, like looking for a baker to help me start this company. And I got, surprisingly, I remember like hundreds of applications or people emailing me saying they could do it.
Okay.
But one of the first like two was from this guy who had, back then, cupcake shops were really popular, and he had started this he was like the head chef at this cupcake company. He had done a bunch of interesting things, and he had done all they had a gluten-free line of cupcakes. So he was the only person I called back. We met, kind of hit it off, and he came back with some awesome recipes, and those changed a little bit as we commercialized them. It's what you can make in your home kitchen is not always what you can make in regular production, but that's how we actually got the recipes initially. And then he eventually, for a while, was part of the company and came on and developed most of our products.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you
So
really started this company with some intention. You're like, I'm going to create a bar that people are going to actually like. It wasn't just have this winning recipe you want to bring to market. It was more intentional. I'm starting this company. I'm going to find the right person to help me create a winning formula.
yeah, it sounds better when you say it like that. I think I'm not sure I was like totally that much thought process. I was just like, I can't. It's kind of like all of my experience in business. It's like the next hurdle is I have no idea how to make this. How do I solve that hurdle? Okay, hire this person who knows how to make it. So yeah, I like the way that you put that, but I'm not trying to put myself back in where I was, 13, 14, 15 years ago. I was just like, I knew that I had no chance to solve it. But yeah, it was really, to your point of like, let's make something that tastes awesome and people want to eat, period, but also good for you.
Right.
And he did a great job with that.
Amazing. Okay, so what were you doing at this time and where did you get the funding to start developing a brand?
So at this time, let's see. So my job at this point was working for a paint company. Now, when you work in paint, what you do is you call it coatings. So it sounds more sophisticated. But my customer was a construction company, a Caterpillar. I was traveling around the world going to their production facilities. And that really drove part of the need because I was on the road all the time. And I was always eating out of my suitcase or my briefcase or whatever. And so that gave me some sales experience to help build the company. And then, when we looked at investment, it wasn't like it was nothing, but it just came out of savings. And it was significant to me at the time, and certainly Elliot, my brother, who put money in as well. We had a third partner that came in and put a little money in, but at the end of the day, I think we put about $125,000 in over the course of 2 or 3 years to get the brand off the ground.
Wow. Okay, and just one thing I want to touch on that you said, so you were traveling as working for Caterpillar, you said, is that right? Caterpillar?
That was my customer. I was working
Your
for
customer.
for a paint company selling to Caterpillar. Yep.
Okay, so you were traveling the country, doing sales and living, like you said, out of your suitcase a little bit. How was that challenging being on a gluten-free diet? Had you been bringing your own food with you or what were you doing?
Yeah, it was challenging because I mean, it was nowadays you can go to almost 90% of restaurants, depending on where you're at, and they at least know what gluten is or they're familiar with it. 12, 13, 14 years ago it was, and being a different country or maybe in the south of America, in Georgia or Alabama, it's like it was tough. It was more difficult, and you're always kind of in that spot of trying to explain yourself, which anybody who's gluten free kind of knows what that feels like, and it's not always the best feeling. It's better now than it was 10 years ago, but so yeah, it was hard, and that's why again the bars, because I would just be like, I might just forego dinner and eat 2 or 3 bars, and that's what got old pretty quick and really drove me to find a better solution, and something that I felt good about too.
Yeah.
It was good ingredients.
I feel that. I feel that, like traveling and not knowing what to eat and not even feeling like I don't want to go out and explain myself. So I'm just going to eat what's in my suitcase or what I brought along with me.
Right.
But those aren't always the most satisfying options either.
Exactly.
So you brought up your brother Elliot, and he's not here today, but tell us a little bit about how he got involved in the business and what it's like working with your brother.
Yeah. So his background is really more. He's more of a IT, marketing, systems person. He worked at Google for 10 years. Super smart. Um, and so like when we started the business, he was sort of developing the website and launching it on Amazon. And then I was the guy who was making it and then walking, you know, locally to the coffee shops and the small grocers trying to sell it in, doing more of the sales piece of it. And the good part about working with your brother is like you've been through a lot already, and like you fight and then the next minute you're hanging out. That's part of growing up with a brother. Um, and so we had already been through that. So that made some of the discussions and the contentious things easier because we had been, frankly, been fighting for our entire lives, right? Like about something. Um, and then also we just have very different like skill sets, like he loves to look at data and systems and analyze our sales data. And like, I can barely build a chart in Excel. So, we just luckily had complementary skills that weren't, so he wasn't like, for whether it's better or worse, I think it was overall better. Like he wasn't trying to get into my world and be like, hey, you're selling things bad. And like, we need to do this with the products. It was sort of like sales and product was my thing. And like, systems and Amazon and website was like his thing. Like there was really nothing. So we kind of stayed out of each other's way a little bit there, which was helpful.
It's good. It's good to have complementary skills and it allows you both to shine in your own talents. So that
Right.
sounds like a good match, a good fit. And then you had mentioned that you were maybe going around to local coffee shops and selling your products. So were those some of your first customers? Is that sort of how you got proof of concept or tell me about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say proof of concept was both our website and then also, yeah, going to those coffee shops. Yeah. I mean, and smaller grocery stores in Chicago. It's where I was living at the time. That's kind of where we proved out like, oh, people actually like they buy these and they come back and they buy them again. And so, yeah, that really was our proof of concept. Our first big customer was Meyer. We're based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Meyer's based here as well. They were nice enough to give us our first chance. And so, and having some of that, like, hey, we know the product sells, gave us the opportunity for them to take a look at it and say yes.
And how did it do in Meyer in those early days?
Super terrible. Um, and part of that was where it was put. It was long story short. It was when we first got into Meyer. This is even before we've gone through the wave of going to the store. 15 years ago, going to the store, not many gluten-free products at all. And then maybe 10 years ago, we started to see gluten-free sections. And then maybe 3 to 4 years ago, we started to see gluten-free sections go away and all the gluten-free stuff get integrated back into the regular stuff. So if it's a gluten-free pasta 10 years ago, it might be in the gluten-free set. Now the gluten-free pasta is just with the regular pasta and you just got to look for it, which I personally like that way better. But some stores still do it differently. So Meyer didn't have a gluten-free set yet. And we were in the convenience section of the store with what they called at that time the tobacco center, which has now changed. So it was like cigarettes, Frito-Lay, Pepsi, and GFBs. Like
Oh my
not,
gosh.
sort of an impulse buy section. And so it wasn't the right thing for us. Eventually, when they put their gluten-free set in after a year or so of being there, we went to the gluten-free set and our sales like tripled or quadrupled overnight. So a great example for, any brand of like, and we still struggle with this to this day of like, are you in the right place in the store?
Right.
And you might be the great product, you might not be, but it's just about like, are you in the right set? And we still that struggle today with our bites. But that's a really important thing to be successful in retail. Are you where your customers expect you to be? Because it's hard
Yeah.
to find. I will go to stores today. I know we're in there. I'm like, I can't find us. That's kind of a problem.
Yeah, definitely. And are a lot of your sales today or even back then, is it through retail or do you get more of the sales through Amazon online?
We're still more brick and mortar based. Probably 80% of our sales are brick and mortar. So ecom is growing quickly. It grew a ton last year. This year started off really strong in ecom, but we're still 80%. Our sales are, the Myers and the Whole Foods and Sprouts and Publix and Kroger's of the world.
Gotcha. Okay, so if you're thinking back to it didn't do well on the shelves at Meyer, obviously a bad placement. You were also a new brand, but was there a moment there or sometime throughout the company's history that you thought, hey, this may not work? Did you doubt yourself? Did you worry it might fail?
I mean, yeah, basically every day. Um, that isn't really that never really leaves you. I don't think. I mean, maybe it does for some people, but not for me. I mean, you don't really think you're necessarily going to fail every day, but you kind of run the business a little bit like you can't take anything for granted. But yes, to get to your actual question, yeah, early on, I remember driving. We had this industrial condo basically where we made the product, and like driving in being like, hey, the sales at Meyer are terrible. We're only doing X amount of dollars a month in sales. Like this might be over. How long will this last? And I remember walking through that building we were in and just thinking like, this will be pretty sad the day that I have to shut this down, and kind of take it all apart. And then, you get through that, and years later in the building that we're in right now, I remember we lost some major distribution, maybe a couple of decent sized customers early in the year, and just being like, maybe no one wants to buy these anymore. You just don't really know. So yeah, it's a constant battle. Maybe battle is the wrong word, but it's a battle slash journey. But yeah, those thoughts of like, are we not going to make it? When you log in and look at the bank balance every day, trying to make payroll, those things, like that's a pretty, for some people that are lucky and things kind of take off from the start, they don't have that. And I think that's one thing for us. Like once we got going, we were profitable for quite a few years in a row. And like, that actually was great, but you sort of forget about how close you were to not making it, and you relax a little bit and you start to make some mistakes again. Which then we go through tough times and retool and turn the company around and grow in a different way or change some things up. So it's a long-winded answer, but yeah, that kind of never leaves you a little bit.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And I think a lot of people don't see these challenges that smaller businesses are facing. And like taking you back to the beginning of this conversation, I mean, you're competing with the Lara bars of the world, like they have a lot more distribution power, a lot more budget to work with, and you're a small brand, the emerging brand. And so it's definitely hard to compete, and people don't recognize there's so many costs involved in starting and growing and scaling a business. So I think we all appreciate you sharing that vulnerability there. So just thinking back though, how did you go from, obviously you were in a major grocery store, but it sounds like you were just in Meyer in your home city. How did you go from that early phase to scaling into a larger retail presence? Take me on that journey.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if I can distill the thoughts down a little bit. You know, Again, I don't know if I have a big like holistic answer of like I wanted to grow, and the growth opportunities were there, and felt like we made a really good product and a unique product. We start with bars, but our bites, um, which most people know us for at this point. Like this
Yeah.
product is really about 75% of what we do
What
today, the bites.
what product is that just for the
Uh,
listeners?
yeah, so these are the coconut cashew bites, the 4-ounce bites pouch.
And they're like
So we do the
little round bites and what's in them? There's like nuts and fruit, right?
so all of our bites flavors are like basically a base of like nuts, nut butter, and dates, and then we coat them in like this one is coconut,
Okay.
We've got a dark chocolate coconut that's also coated in coconut. We have chocolate peanut butter, which are both coated in peanuts. We've got a dark chocolate hazelnut, which is awesome, coated in hazelnuts, and then a couple of almond flavors like chocolate cherry almond,
Hmm.
which are
Which
coated in
is good.
almonds. Yeah. And so so those top 7 flavors of bites, we have some new cookie bites that actually are not coated and also have no
Yeah.
allergens in
And I
them.
have those right in front of me, actually.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. So those are awesome. I'm eating a lot of those. My son eats like the birthday cake, the entire pouch all at one time. Um, so, those are some newer ones. But so those bites have really become what we're about we've mostly been selling 70% bites or so for the last like 7 or 8 years. But you're quite that I forgot.
The
What was the question
scaling.
again?
So how you were
Oh yeah,
scaling.
scaling. So the opportunities present themselves, and we were somewhat thoughtful about like, hey, what are the right channels for us, meaning grocery or natural or club or things like that, and what products are right for us. And so, we leaned into bites at that time because bites are still the way making bites is not as easy as making bars. That's why not many people do it. Our bites are still unique in the marketplace today, and they were even more unique 7 or 8, 10 years ago when we launched them. So we just sort of, we were prepared. We were ready for it. We were prepared. Luckily, and partially because like really Elliot and I took almost no salary for years, probably 5 or 6 years, or very small one. We were able to be profitable. Get some partner with a bank, get some bank financing to buy some equipment, and that allowed us to scale. Small salaries and being profitable allowed us to get bank financing probably sooner than other companies would have. And that enabled us to have the capacity to scale and some of that cash left in the company to scale. And there were a couple of customers we had that were nicely profitable, which really helped the business the first 5 years off the ground and get going.
Wow. Like
So
good
it
old
was just
fashioned
really
bootstrapping.
a good old fashioned bootstrapping and just being up to the challenge or being ready for the challenge of like, okay, like, and just being willing to like, I don't know where this is going to go, but sitting here and not moving forward is not the answer. So we're just gonna, and sometimes take some business that maybe you shouldn't. Some advice people gave me early on was go deep or go wide, or go deep but not wide. Meaning, okay, we're based in Grand Rapids. Let's really build this company in the Midwest and then take it somewhere else, and then take it to the Northeast, and then take it to the Southeast. And that's great, but that's also tough to do when Kroger says, "Hey, we want to put 5 SKUs in tomorrow nationwide, and it's going to be a $2 million customer." You're like, "Okay, here we
Yeah.
go. Let's figure it out." So you have to be flexible.
Yeah. Do you think so? Your signature product were the bars, but do you think when you added the bites, and I know you also have oatmeal cups, did that help you scale and get more attention, or do people still want the bars? How does that work?
So I would say like when we went from bars to bites, that really helped us scale because the bites were unique and helped us. I would walk into a meeting with bars and bites regularly, and people just sort of push the bars to the side. This goes back almost 7 or 8 years ago. They'd be like, "I have enough bars. Your bar is probably great, but it's not going to make a real difference in my category." And then they'd grab this bag and they'd say, "What is this? Tell me about this. I think
Mm.
I like these." So this, when we used to make bites, it was totally, there's, I can't remember the quote, but it's like to scale, you have to do things that don't scale. So when we started making bites, we made them we could make 42 pounds in an entire day. We were losing money hand over fist launching this product.
It wasn't
Turned
enough,
out to
is what
be
you're saying? Is 42 pounds not enough?
42 pounds is nothing. If you think about
Nothing.
the cost of like a group of, back then it was like 4 people on a production line making 42 pounds. So there's 4 ounces. That's about 160 bags of product
Mm.
for an entire day of work. And now we can do, let's just say like 4,000 pounds in a day, 3,500 maybe. So we still make things small batch, still 125-pound batches. It's still very like, craft, but it's not, we just have a bigger, throughput. So we were losing money nonstop. And so, but but in terms of scaling, like that helped us scale. Whereas I would say, looking back on an oatmeal, well, I love that product and it's a super cool package and it's one of the cleanest ingredient decks in the market. And it's got 10 grams of protein. Um, it was a little bit of a distraction. It needed a
Mm.
new piece of equipment, which took money out of the company. I think looking back on it, I love oatmeal. It's nationwide in Whole Foods. It's got some good distribution. It's a great, again, I think it's probably the best oatmeal on the market. That being said, from a financial standpoint, you'd probably look back and say that was a mistake because you took
Mm.
some money from a really fast growing, unique item like bites and you put it into a different product that honestly the market opportunity wasn't really there. But you didn't know that at the time. And that's okay. You just made a mistake. But I think probably more focus, like going back to that comment of going deep instead of wide, is like you've got something that's working, like just put all your energy there. Put your energy in bites. Oatmeal was kind of a distraction at the time, and we probably would have been better off not doing it.
Mm.
Again, but that's probably true. I think that's the reality of it. I love it. We still make it. We're going to keep making it. But going back 5, 6, 7 years ago, when you've got critical resources going away from your best product line, that's probably a mistake.
And sometimes you don't realize those mistakes until, until it's hindsight. So,
Really.
and
Yeah.
it's good that you're reflective about it as an owner of a business. I think we all reflect on, oh, I could have done that better, but I wouldn't have known that if I had not done it.
Right, exactly. And so you don't make the same mistake. So that's doing oatmeal has prevented us from making the same mistake again. So we only
Mm.
made it once. And one of the interesting things about oatmeal is like that category, which we didn't realize again until after we like started making it and got some data, which we should have gotten the data first, but data is expensive and the money to do it, is that in that category, 80% of the sales at retail are, or maybe 90%, some really big number, is all the multi-packs, the 6 packs, the 8 packs that we ate as kids, those little envelopes that you open up.
Right.
And only like 15-20% of that market is the single serving. So we launched a product for the smallest part of the oatmeal market.
Have you
you
thought
know
about growing the oatmeal into those packets and
Yes,
competing
that's
that
right.
way, or is that a distraction too?
Yeah, we have thought about that, because now it's like, well, yeah, now we can. The thought at that point was like, well, now we have people that are single serve. They try that for a lower price. If they like it, then we can make it. We'll make a 6 pack or an 8 pack or a bulk bag. But it's just never made the top like project list to execute. So we haven't done it.
Yeah.
We've thought about it a lot though.
Yeah, I gotcha. There's a lot, and you have some great
Yeah,
products. So, well, I look forward to seeing what you do with the oatmeal and the bites, and who knows where
yeah,
life will take you guys. So,
yeah,
um, I'd love to touch on a little bit, like on your values and your leadership. I see on the people who are listening to us may not see this, but you have your certified B corporation logo displayed proudly, and the lights have went out on him a few times because of there being like a sustainable business. Your lights are not going to be on if no one's in the room. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about some of your values in running this business and why this is important to you.
yeah. Well, I'd say we do a lot underneath that B Corp umbrella, but early on when we started the business, B Corp, we didn't know about it for a few years. I'm not sure when B Corp actually started, but it was just like, as part of, I think, why Elliot and I both left corporate America, was just, it just seems sometimes overcomplicated. And like, why are we doing things that just aren't the right way to do business? Like treating people well and communicating well, or as well as you possibly can. And just trying to do good. So when we started the company, and especially when we started our own production facility, all the things that came naturally were like, well, we're going to try to treat the team as well as we possibly can, as long as we can stay in business. We're going to recycle everything we can, just kind of the basics of things that we just thought were like the right thing to do. And then that eventually, B Corp became a thing, and Elliot really led that charge to becoming certified B Corp. When we did it, I think it was 2015 or 2016, so about 10 years. Um, And so again, we were just like, and whether we're B Corp or not, we're still just going to keep doing those things. That's never going to change. It was just, again, felt like the right thing to do. And then you just, like everything else, you're just like trying to get incrementally better all the time. So you start with recycling, and then Elliott's like, well, let's become zero waste, which means that 90% of what comes in the building gets recycled, reused, or upcycled. And that takes a lot of work and it costs money. Um, but eventually it's kind of it's what we do. And you find like, it's all little problems to solve. There's crazy things like, okay, you've got buckets that had peanut butter in them. Okay, well, what do? You can wash them with hot water, which wastes a bunch of resources and money, and then you throw them away, recycle them. So then you get to like all these crazy solutions, like, like pig farmers will actually take those buckets and they'll take them for free. So and they'll take them while they're dirty so that their pigs can literally lick out the peanut butter.
Wow.
And then guess what? Now you've got empty buckets that, whether it was legal or illegal then or now, whatever, like the grow house for cannabis might want those empty buckets to start new plants, or maybe it's regular plants, whatever it is. So then you start this whole supply chain of like, that's based on like sustainability and just like reusing, recycling, and upcycling, and it's just like all these like little things that you get into to solve those problems in the most like economical and environmentally friendly way. So we go from like washing buckets all the time, and anybody who recycles knows how difficult it is to clean out a peanut butter jar.
Yes.
So think of doing that like 35 times a day. And so, you go from like, okay, we used to spend all this water and then throw it away, and now we're just like, we just put it here, somebody picks it up, and it's actually like a much more beneficial thing for everybody. So that's just one of the examples of just like one of the things that comes up. And then Elliot, led the zero waste thing, and then we started using wind and solar energy from the grid. So, which is as contributors to that helps the energy companies put out more solar panels and more wind energy and all these other things that we then use and pay a premium for to use that energy off the grid.
That's amazing. I think that commitment to being a more sustainable business is the wave of the future. And I think we all have to do that and be good stewards of the world. So you might even be a little ahead of your time in some of those activities.
Well, I hope that. Thank you. I'm not. We try our best, and like I said, it's about trying to get incrementally better. There's the next thing that we'll try to figure out, that we've already got some ideas on, of what's the next step that we can take that's going to be helpful to the overall team and the environment.
Yeah. So how do you think, I mean, I guess you've been in this for 15 years now. How do you think this business and this journey you've been on in entrepreneurship has changed you personally?
It's a fantastic question. So, I mean, I think overall it's made me more patient as a person, also more resilient, because it's really hard, and we've had some really good times and we've had some really hard times. COVID was really hard for us, changed a lot in our business. And it really threw us for a loop for a couple of years. So yeah, we've been on the brink of huge success and huge failure for 10 years, right? I mean, overall it's a success. But it's been up a lot of ups and downs. So I'd say more resilient, more patient, and also just realize like it's almost never as bad as you think.
Yeah.
I have to remind myself of that all the time when somebody brings me some, not say bad news, it's like, oh, this happened, and you're like, all right, like, okay, well, and you work through it, and you're like, it's not that big of a deal, and it almost always is not that big of a deal.
Yeah. I've
Um,
learned that too. As a business owner, there's like so many ups and downs. It is a big roller coaster of emotions. And
yeah,
you've been on that roller coaster for 15 years, obviously. So I
yeah,
imagine it's hard.
yeah, and in some ways, you're also like my wife will say like, oh, you don't seem that excited. I'm just like, if I can't, you're like, if you get super excited and then something bad happens, you're like, well, it's great, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, which is, I'm not sure it's a great thing. Like, I don't really celebrate anything, but I also don't really, I try not to get that mad about anything either. So you try to stay in the middle, which is mostly good, but you should
Yeah.
take the time to celebrate some good things too. And I don't always do that, which I probably should.
Yeah. I get that though. You're more even keel. I can tell that about you. You're just even keel and you're taking the good and the bad in stride.
But I think yeah, maybe, yeah. If Anastasia, who I've worked with for 12 years or longer, is listening, she's going to tell me that you're wrong later. But I'll go with that.
Okay. Well, that's my impression, but yeah, I guess I don't
Yeah,
have to work with
no,
you every day.
no.
Um, so is there anything along the way that you have learned that you wish you learned when you first started this journey, the GFB journey?
um, I think yeah, one lesson I had to learn the hard way, and I don't know. I'm trying to think if this is the best answer to your question. Um, I think it's probably, well, there's probably two things I could say. The one I would say that probably applies bigger picture is like, and I'll use a cheesy quote because I like cheesy quotes, and it's um, easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life. And so what that means is if you make a bunch of easy choices, like you put off things, you delay, you don't make, you know, you got to do something, you just don't deal with it. It makes things harder. But if you do the hard stuff first, then things get easier. So that applies to almost everything. Like, hey, I've got to discipline or talk to this person or have a hard conversation or fire somebody, or I've got to give a customer bad news, or I've got to do whatever it is, right? I've got to find out if a lot of things like in sales, I'd be like, I wonder how we're selling at this customer. And I'd be like, no news is good news. And you're like, actually, that's the wrong way to look at it. You should if it's doing well, great. If it's not, you'll have a chance to fix it. So I would say like the lesson is just like that you should just take things head on and just like make the hard choice every day. The more hard choices you make every day, the easier the next day is going to be.
Yeah.
And
No, I love that.
and I probably have to learn that like literally every day still. There's always something you're putting off and you don't want to deal with. And the faster you deal with it, the better the next day is going to be. And I think that's true in business for sure.
Yeah.
So I'd say that's probably the biggest one that I think when you're working in corporate America, you can get kind of lost in the shuffle and like somebody else might end up dealing with it. But when you're working in a small business, like that's not how it works.
Yeah. I hear that. I hear that. Well, I appreciate you being a little reflective with us. That's really beautiful. And as we wrap things up, I have a few rapid fire questions for you. Are you up for that?
All right. Sure. Let's do
Maybe
it.
just say the first thing that comes to your mind, or if you need to expand on something, that's okay too. But the
Yeah.
first one's really easy, really easy. What's your favorite or go-to GFB product?
Chocolate peanut butter bites.
Mm, those are
Yeah.
good. I think I've had the chocolate chip cookie dough ones. I really like those.
Yeah. I'm eating more of those lately because, they're newer. But yeah, chocolate peanut butter is still my go-to.
Okay, what's one word you would use to describe your journey so far?
I'll just say inspiring. And I'll just say that, like I mentioned, we've been through some really great times, some really hard times. But like everyone that comes here to work every day, like that is like technically working to support like my dream from 15 years ago is pretty amazing. So I'd say the people that I work with.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. What's the best advice you've ever received?
I'll go with that one I mentioned earlier. I think I didn't listen to it, but I think go deep, not wide is
Right.
a really good one that could really relate to both your sales strategy and your product. I didn't listen to the advice, but it was one I think about all the time. So I'd say that's it.
Yeah. Right.
So
And
these
I
are
know
good. These are hard rapid fire questions.
I know. I might need to soften these a little. Well, so
No,
you guys obviously really care about the ingredients that you're putting in each of your products. So, what is one ingredient you wouldn't be caught dead putting in your product?
if you can't buy it at the grocery store, we're probably not going to use it.
Yeah.
because it needs to be understandable. And the truth is, you could go buy almost all, if not all, the ingredients that we use at a grocery store and go home and make the bites yourself. It just actually isn't that cost efficient and takes a ton of time, and probably aren't buying the same quality of ingredients that we have access to. So that might sound like an avoidance of the question, but I'd just say people need to understand what it is. Like, they
Yeah.
need to understand, oh, it's cashews, it's coconut, it's peanut butter, it's agave. Like, it's got
Yeah.
to be one of those ingredients for us to use it.
And I think being gluten free, we're used to reading ingredient labels, and I think we're seeing a reckoning with the rest of the country as
Right.
well, looking at ingredients. And if I look at an ingredient list and I don't understand what it is, or I have to spend an hour Googling different ingredients to find out what they are and if they have gluten in them, it's definitely something I'd put back on the shelf. But I'm looking at your
Right.
cookie bites right now. I'm like, I understand and know all of these ingredients, and I think that's what we need to look at. There's no artificial stuff in here. There's no food dyes. There's none of that stuff that is just gunking up our
Right.
food system.
Yep.
What is your favorite book or podcast or TV show right now? We'll give you a lot of options.
I'm probably a couple years behind, but we're watching Shrinking right now. That's pretty good. TV show on Apple TV, I think it is.
Is there a gluten-free brand you admire besides your own that you really admire and that you've watched kind of come up in the world?
Yeah, I know the guys from Bonza, and I think they've just done an
Mm.
awesome job with their branding and their product extensions. He started it after us, and where he came to me for advice. Now I need to go to him for advice. Um, and they're great guys. And then there's other stuff like Feel Good Foods is like, whenever I see them at trade shows, I'm like eating my 15th egg roll. So there's some, like, they make awesome products. So there's some other stuff like that I'm a consumer of and I really enjoy.
Yeah, I love it because you are gluten free. You have celiac, so you're in this marketplace with us. You're in the trenches with the gluten free community.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, last rapid fire, although it may not be rapid.
Yeah, I'm not good at
What?
these. They're rapid fires. I
What's?
ramble too much.
No, you're doing great. What's one thing people would be surprised to know about you?
I was a chubby kid, so I was like,
Oh,
probably 40 or 50 pounds heavier than I was, 20 years ago, 25 years ago now, I guess. So, most people, when they find out, they're kind of surprised, but, that was part of the journey too, because I kind of started the health awareness earlier. I was thinking a lot about health in college, or end of college, I would say. And that really helped me. I was reading labels 25 years ago.
yeah, makes
And that
sense.
really helped me to be more aware of nutrition and stuff like that as I started the company, because I was already there's sort of a passion for nutrition and better for you stuff back when that really wasn't much of a thing at all.
Right. Like I
So
was
that helped
thinking
me.
you started 15 years ago and you were already thinking about adding things like protein to your products. But I think the protein revolution has sort of come in the last 5 years where like everything has protein in it now. So you were,
Right.
again, ahead of your time on that a little bit. And that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think that overall it was a good thing.
Okay. You did really well. Thank you. Maybe I'll make those a little easier. I'm still learning
Oh
too.
no, yeah. You're all good. All good.
So what's next for you and the GFB?
Well, we are going through an exciting time right now. Some new products out. We actually just completed a merger. So we
Oh,
are, as of about 30 days ago, we are also a granola company.
oh,
So,
wow. I'll write that down.
so we'll start producing this actually on Monday, in our building here. And so Hudson Henry Granola, GFB are now the same company. So we have a much larger product line. So we're excited about that. It's an awesome product. It tastes great. Also, higher protein, lower added sugar granola, uh, olive oil, no seed oils, and maple syrup as the main sweetener. So, really fit with us. Great people, a great product, and we're excited to bring that to our customers as well.
Okay, so Marshall just showed us this bag of Hudson Henry granola. Is it going to continue to be Hudson Henry? I haven't heard of that, or are you rebranding it as GFB granola?
It will continue to be Hudson Henry.
Well, congratulations on the new merger.
Yeah, I sort of sprung it on you, didn't I?
You did. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah. Yeah, so this is fairly new. Yeah, I think we just closed this deal 3 weeks ago, so probably after we had this whole thing scheduled. So it's been in the works for quite a bit, but yeah, we're excited about it.
I think it makes sense though for another product line that fits within what you're already doing. So I think that's a great complementary product for sure. Finally, how can people keep in touch with you? Where can they find you and GFB products?
Obviously on social at the GFB, I think is Instagram and Facebook, and then at thegfb.com is our website. From a retail standpoint, obviously we're on Amazon or our website are a great place to find us. And then, we're launching nationwide in Kroger here in the next 30 days.
Oh, wow.
Meijer, Sprouts, Whole Foods. And so we're out there. We're also throughout most of Canada too.
Amazing. And we're going to be featuring your new cookie dough bites in one of our upcoming Love Me Gluten Free boxes as well. So our subscribers will get a first taste of this new product.
It's awesome. Yeah. And those I think we're doing cookie dough.
Yeah, the cookie dough.
Yeah, those are great. My second favorite flavor, but it might be my first soon. So
yeah, awesome. Well, we have to try all of them to figure it out, right? Hopefully people will come try them all.
Yeah, we'll do new flavors in the future, and maybe some granola at some point too.
Yeah. Oh, I would love that. Thank you so much, Marshall. I really enjoyed our conversation today and just learning more about your products and your origin story and some of the challenges and struggles you've had as an entrepreneur. I really appreciate you sharing that with me today.
Awesome. It's been great. Yeah, thanks for listening and thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to Gluten Free Unwrapped. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone in your gluten-free circle. You can connect with me, Jenny, on Instagram at GoodForYouGlutenFree, and be sure to check out my carefully curated celiac-friendly subscription boxes at lovemeglutenfree.com. I'll return next week to unwrap more inspiring stories from the people shaping the gluten-free world. Until next time, stay strong, eat well, and remember, you don't have to do this alone.